Going back to the subject of championship caliber teams, it seems dramatic to ask this so soon, but do you both think that the title window has closed for Boston?
Go ahead, Gary.
I don't think it's closed. I think it's cracked right now. With Tatum, you're not going to win a championship without Tatum.
Mm-hmm.
So your focus is a 26-27 season because now you're starting to get into like, okay, Jayson's 27. He's going to be coming off a major injury. He'll be 28 next year. So when he basically returns to the floor, he's going to be 28. Jaylen is going to be 29. So now you're getting into the prime years, right? You know, they're no longer young. They're no longer kids. Jason's no longer
19-year-old
Jason
Tatum
ain't 19 no more. So this is the window you got to take advantage of because you ain't, what you gonna wait till they 34?
Shoot,
so,
Deuce almost 19. Shoot,
yeah.
You're talking about.
Oh God, I can't with you. Anyway, I think the window is cracked. I think that they prepare for life in 26-27 because, I mean, there's teams coming up, and we talked about them. The Orlando Magic and the Detroit Pistons are two teams that are going to be emerging. We don't know what's going to happen in Cleveland. Are they going to make changes after losing to Indiana in 5 games? Milwaukee seems headed for a rebuild. Miami seems like they're a mess. Atlanta, we don't know what they can. You win with Trey on a high level. The Knicks, obviously, the Knicks will have everybody signed. Will they be as good as next year? Will something happen with them? I think they'll be obviously one of the top contenders in the East, along with Indiana. But if you're looking at 26-27, I think that's the year you start shooting for because you want to capitalize on Tatum and Brown's prime. You cannot put it off 2-3 years. You can't go through a rebuild in the prime years of your 2 top players. That ain't working. So you're going to have to regenerate this really quickly. So to answer your question, Kwani, I think the window next year is cracked. I think you can compete. You can be a 7 seed, a 6 seed, maybe win a first round series. And I think the fans will be into that. The fans will be like, they'll appreciate a hard playing team. But the Celtics, quite honestly, and I was talking with somebody about this today, I have to change some things up. The 3-point thing, and people going to be coming at me for this, but like the 3-point shot cost them the first 2 games. They missed
Gary.
They missed 70.
Ooh.
Sure, shut up.
Ooh, Gary, I'm telling.
They missed 75 threes in the first 2 games. And I'm not talking about stop taking threes. I'm talking about figure out other ways to score and maybe be a little bit less one-dimensional. I think they're going to have, because especially if you're losing 2 to 3 premium shooters. If you're losing Hauser, you're losing Porzingis, you might have to figure out different ways to score. And you might have to figure out, and without Tatum. So you figure out a different style, maybe a more rugged style, maybe a more defensive-minded team, maybe a team that is not going to make the game look so beautiful. And we all love the ball movement, the threes when they're falling, but you might have to change some things up because we don't know how this next year's team is going to look. But I think if they pivot into a team that plays hard, that's a little bit younger, and you give guys some looks, Neemias Queta, give the kid a look, figure out what you have in him. Quit sitting him. Like, you got to figure this out. The same with Shireman, the same with J.D. Davidson, the same with Jordan Walls. I'm not talking about just throw them out there and give them 30 minutes. But figure out what you have in some of these young guys. You're bringing probably 2 more draft picks in. So figure out, and maybe you have the next great Celtic on your hands. And I think that's up to Brad.
Yeah. A guy that I would love to see in Boston, and again, they'd have to obviously trade for him, but I just don't see a clear path to making that happen. And again, I don't think the Celtics need to have a major overhaul to keep that championship window open. Because the thing about, to me, championship window is, are you going to be able to field a team that can not just win a bunch of games, but really are built for the playoffs? Because that's the thing that when you talk about championship window, you have to really think about, are not whether they can win in the regular season, but can they do damage in the playoffs? And I think in 26-27, if you've got, Tatum back at the beginning of the season, Jaylen Brown hopefully will be, where he needs to be health-wise. And some of those, at least one of those guys that Gary has mentioned, emerges as a regular rotation guy. And maybe, Peyton Pritchard becomes kind of a borderline all-star maybe. Now, all of a sudden, you got a core group that can go out there and compete for a championship in the East. I just – the one guy that I would love to see them bring in the fold in some way, shape, or form, and it kind of touches on what Gary talked about, was Isaiah Stewart, who is a dog in every sense of the word. That, as the Celtics kind of, I think, make this shift/pivot to maybe not necessarily being such a three-point shot happy team, you need guys who have a little bit more grit to them. I thought that was the one thing in that New York Knicks series more than anything they just didn't have. When Karl Anthony Towns decided that I'm not going to be a 41% three-point shooter, I'm actually at 7 feet. I'm going to take this 6'6" guy who's guarding me on the block, and I'm going to go to work. If you've got someone who can give you a little bit more resistance when that happens, I think it gives you a much better chance of going further than you did this past year. And that's, to me, the one thing going forward that Brad Stevens has to figure out. You really do have to have a team with the ability to pivot and morph into whatever they have to do in a particular series. If you're playing a team that is physical, you have to have a team that can morph into the more physical team. If you got a team that is more finesse and shot making centric, you have to have guys who can do that too. And that was, to me, when you look back at last season's team, that was kind of their thing. They had guys who could knock down threes, but they also had guys who could lock you up on the perimeter. They had guys that could defend on the front court, and that allowed them to outperform anyone and everyone they played, because they had a roster that could match what you do well, except they could do it better than you. And that wasn't the case with the Knicks. The Knicks were the more physical team, and they just did not have the people power to compete with that. So the window, I think, is still open, but they're going to have to tweak some things. They're going to have to get a little bit more physicality and toughness, mental and physical toughness, from some of those guys that we haven't seen on the floor. And that, to me, is the best chance for them to compete in 25-26 and be back in the title hunt in 26-27.